Hello, you beautiful, beautiful human, and welcome back to the With Genevieve podcast. I'm so happy you're here because today, this episode, frankly, it's just a special one. I'm joined by one of my dearest friends, Val. She's a massage therapist, the founder of Peaks and Valleys Wellness, an incredible advocate for the queer community, and honestly, just one of the safest people I've ever met. This conversation goes everywhere in the best possible way. We talk about friendship, queer joy, chosen family, Dutch directness, neurodivergence, community, mental health and mental wealth, identity, and what it feels like to finally become more of yourself. There are moments where we laugh so hard that we completely lost the plot. And there were moments that genuinely made me emotional. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. So grab yourself a cup of tea, head out for a walk, fold some laundry, or simply get comfortable and let's dive in. And if conversations like these, they leave you wanting for more, which I totally understand, keep an eye on my socials and the WithGen website. The Great Minds Project is launching soon, a space where we'll dive deeper into mental wealth, emotional resilience, self-trust, and building a life that actually feels like yours. Now, if someone comes to mind while you're listening today, send them this episode. You never know how much one conversation can make someone feel a little less alone. Oh my God. I have like one of my dearest friends here, and her name is Valeria. And oh my
Hi.
God. Hello. Oh my God.
Hi.
I'm so happy to have you here. This is such an honor, and we've been trying to do this for a while now, haven't
For
we?
months.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's been a while. So yeah, I'm excited to finally be here too.
Yeah, it's so cool having you here, get like a bigger scope on entrepreneurship, mental health, all that stuff. Get more opinions in there because we need it desperately. Well, to, start us off, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? What do you do? And, what brought you to the Netherlands of all places?
Okay. Well, I'm Valeria, a trans woman from the US living here in Amsterdam. What brought me here? Originally, my motivation for moving out of the country was essentially the election of Donald Trump for the second term. His first election, I wanted to leave, but I didn't have the means. This second time through, I did have the means, so I left when I could. What do I do? I'm a massage therapist and I own a clinic with locations in Amsterdam and The Hague called Peaks and Valleys Wellness. And ultimately, right now, it's just massage services. But the ultimate goal for this business is to expand it into a multidisciplinary health and wellness clinic specifically for the queer community. Obviously, everyone who is an ally is also welcome. It's not a requisite thing to be queer in order to come seek our services. It's just that we want to be known as immediately identifiable as safe practitioners for queer people. And my
Yeah.
biggest motivation there is simply the fact that being queer means that healthcare is always scary and at times inaccessibly so. For myself, I can speak to my own personal issues with trying to get healthcare as a trans queer person. And it's hard not knowing which practitioner is going to be safe, which practitioner is going to take you seriously, uh, which practitioner is even going to understand what it's like to be queer in this world that is not meant for us and is actively hostile towards us. And so that's largely my biggest motivation. My original idea was to make this just a standard clinic where I wouldn't market specifically to queer people, but once I landed here, it was the queer community that held me afloat, that helped me start this business, to expand my business, to gain clients, and just all around have been just this incredible network of people that I consider, at the very least, the start of my own chosen family out here. And I felt a calling and an impetus to give back to this community that has done nothing but support me from the ground up. So I don't know. That was a lot of words to say. I'm a queer person making a queer clinic.
Well, I'm loving it. I mean, we're getting into the nitty gritty in one full step. I'm also very used to our conversations going like that because, you and I were pretty fucking close. And
Yeah.
yeah, we met each other. Maybe for the listeners, this would be fun as well. We met each other
Hmm.
through a queer business club that's in the Netherlands. And well, since we're both queer and we're both part of it, I asked people like, hey guys, who wants to come and network and whatever, and, have a fun time hanging out online. And ever since, I think, wasn't that January, by the way? That's like January or something,
Yeah,
right?
I think that was January. It had to have been early in the year because it was one of I think it was the very first queer business club meetup that I went to, and it was I think it was the neurodivergent one.
Yeah.
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 So I had been to a neurodivergent meetup before, yeah, in January, but for a different organization. And so when I saw the event pop up in the Queer Business Club WhatsApp, I was like, oh, well, I'm absolutely going to that. And then I met you, and then, the rest is, as we say, history. We clicked immediately. And then I think it took us a while to actually finally get together in person. And then
Yeah.
when we did, it was just like we hung out for like hours. I think we're supposed to just do like an hour dinner or something like that, right? Your standard, like, oh, let's meet somebody from the internet. And then we just wound up basically just hanging out the whole night. So,
Yeah. That
yeah.
was magical. That was great. And it's also a great way to
But yeah, you
meet
did a
people,
podcast
right?
about it right afterward.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, you did an episode specific. You had an episode planned, and then you're like, actually, you know what? I'm gonna do a different podcast episode, and I listened to it, and it was talking about. I think it was the episode about meeting people that feel like family.
Oh my God. Yeah, I remember now. I remember now. Oh, geez, Louise. Oh, Jesus. Yes, because,
So whenever that episode aired is basically when we met.
yeah. Oh my God. Now I remember. Oh my God. Because, when I walked into your home and when we were all having dinner together, I just felt so welcomed. And this is also why I'm writing my manuscript and why I started my mental health practice. And it's because I want to convey that feeling of home for other people as well. And when I hung out with you guys, I was like, this is exactly what I want to be able to give to the world. And because I was so clear on what I wanted to give, I was also able to receive it kind of,
Mhm. I mean,
which, you know,
I guess so. I just I come from a Latino family, and so my mom is kind of, I would say, my biggest influence and role model, and for lack of a better term, hero. She's been through a lot. She's done a lot. She's accomplished so much, and she's faced and overcome so much adversity. It's kind of hard not to really admire her. And one of the things that my mom really made sure was a staple in our house was that sense of welcome and family. So no matter who you were, if you were in our home, you were going to be treated like family. And that is just something that I've carried throughout my entire professional career, through my personal career, or through my personal life, rather. I really love that sense of belonging and safety. And
yeah,
and especially for queer people, right? It's that is really hard to find out in the wild. Once you have your community and you have your people, then you're kind of, I suppose, maybe not necessarily set, but you're at a good place, right? But finding that is really, really difficult. And so my treatment room has been that way always. I work really, really hard to make sure that my clients feel as though they're fully accepted and they can trust me to take care of them. And I apply the same thing to people who come visit my home. So like, and then for you, specifically, like, yeah, I followed that standard protocol, right, of like welcoming you to my home and then, taking care of you the way that I would. But the rest of it just felt so naturally comfortable with the two of us, the way that we would talk, the way that we would, like, we talked, shared experiences were so similar that we felt immediately like siblings, and that's very rare, right?
yeah.
So it was super cool. It was kind of like, oh man, now I kind of know what it's like to have a sister.
Exactly. I've always
Right.
wanted a sister, and there you are. Yes,
Right,
finally.
exactly. Exactly, and I have 2 younger brothers, and I love them both to absolute pieces. It's just a different dynamic, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Now
yeah. And
they
also,
have
what
a
you're
sister.
saying, yeah, they do, but well,
Not me.
due to yes,
Yes.
well, I got your back, babe. I got your back,
Yeah.
and yeah. you saying about, being from a Latino background, I'm from a Hispanic background. So I kind of get that warmth and I kind of get that feel. And, I also do think it's good for our physical and mental health if, we get to resonate that warmth and the welcoming energy into our lives.
Mhm.
And you've also inspired me big time this year to
Thank you.
be embracing that more for myself this year. So I don't know. I told you like last month or 2 months ago, I was like, I'm embracing myself and my roots a bit more because I live in the Netherlands, but
Mhm.
I am from a Southern background and it's definitely very different. I mean, Dutchies are rather a bit distant and a bit cold, and it's a different culture. How was it for you to move to the Netherlands and get into the culture over here? And how was adjusting?
Interestingly, I actually adjusted, I think, fairly quite well. Because the other side of my queerness is my neurodiversity. And so I am diagnosed ADHD, self-diagnosed ADHD. I think I have a pretty strong autistic streak to pair along with my ADHD. And so my struggle in the US has always been that fake niceness, that everything is so hyperbolized. No one means what they say anymore. Like, oh my gosh, this was the greatest coffee I've ever had. It's a Starbucks fucking latte. You know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of nice, quote unquote, that would drive me insane. And so when I came
Mhm.
here and I encountered my first brush up with the Dutch directness, um, I found it quite refreshing, honestly, and
Yeah.
a lot less mental load on me that I don't have to navigate those really annoying like social requirements of like, hey, how's it going? It's like, oh my gosh, I'm having the best day, but like really like your mom died, right? And like you got fired from your job, but you're expected to just be like, oh no, I'm having a great time, and just kind of fake your way through your interactions. It's so nice here for the most part. I don't have to do that, right? If somebody
Yeah.
asks me, how am I? Generally, they're kind of okay with me answering, honestly, I'm having kind of a shitty day. And whenever I've said that to any Dutchies specifically, they're like, oh, why is it shitty? Like they actually cared. So I found that to be interesting. And I suppose with the Dutch coldness, I don't find them to be terribly cold. I find the Dutch that I have interacted with, right? And granted, I've only been here for about 7 months, so I have a very, very small sample size. But from the Dutch people that I've spoken to, I don't find that they are cold, rather than they are a bit more guarded.
Mhm.
It's less they are less upfront about things, at least on the surface. But what I maybe I don't think I'm explaining this very well.
Okay, take your time.
Yeah, I'm trying to put my thoughts into words here. I've also had a stroke in 2024 that affects the way that I think. So sometimes my brain just does stops functioning. So I think what I generally describe the Dutch as, I say the Dutch are not nice, but they are very kind. And that
Hmm.
distinction is important because no, they're not going to be nice to you. They're not going to be like, "Oh my gosh, that's a lovely outfit you're wearing even though it looks like ass." They're not going to do that. They
No,
will,
no.
but if the Dutch person does tell you that your dress is cute or your outfit is nice or well put together, then I kind of am just like, I feel like that compliment lands so much more strongly because the Dutch do not have a habit of lying to you for the sake of making your feelings okay.
Oh yeah, no, there's this type of genuinity to it that,
Yeah.
you don't find anywhere else. But,
Yes.
in terms of, maybe you and I being more from the southern hemisphere, it's also nice to have a type of warmth. So maybe like honest warmth. We like honest warmth.
Yeah, totally. And so, like, I don't find the Dutch to be very cold. I find them to be guarded. But whenever you get past that moat, that defense system, or whatever you want to call it, I do find that the Dutch are quite kind, quite warm, and incredibly generous. The two examples that always spring to mind is when I first landed here, and I was roundabouts January. I was trying to get my BSN, and I had done this whole process horrifically backwards. So I was getting sent in conflicting directions because they assumed that I was in a certain a certain part of the process when I was at a different part of the process. And so it was just really, really confusing. So I'm at the Gemeente in Amsterdam West, and I'm just losing my mind because I keep getting sent to the wrong place. And I finally just break down in the lobby and I start crying, right? I'm so
Mm.
stressed out. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't understand anything because nothing is in English or any other language. The Dutch do not give a fuck if you speak Dutch or not when it comes to like government stuff. So as I'm sitting there in the lobby, completely having this full blown emotional meltdown as quietly as I can because I'm in public, one of the Dutch women who was working at the desk, who had previously paid me zero attention before, suddenly she's kind of walking over really quickly, and then she sits next to me, and then she asks if I'm okay, if she can bring me some water, and another Dutch person also kind of came by and just kind of like expressed a little bit of concern as she was passing by, and I thought that that was very, again, very kind, not nice,
Mm.
but very kind to care about a stranger who's clearly having a pretty substantial emotional moment, and to not only feel comfortable enough to walk up to that stranger and offer help, but for multiple people to do that at once for someone that they've never met is very, very kind. The
Yeah.
second example is when there was a windstorm here, I think last week, and I was walking home from the tram station, and I hear somebody fall on their bicycle in the bike lane. So I turn around and I see this older man, and he's face down on the pavement, not really moving. And so I freak out and I turn around and start running toward him. But before I even get halfway there were already three other people that had come running out of the businesses there to help him up, to get his bike out of the path lane. He was bleeding out of his face, so somebody brought him a paper towel. I found his phone that had fallen out of his pocket on the sidewalk. It was cracked, so I held it to make sure that nobody ran it over or stole it. And as this other older man was helping him get back on his feet and get his bearings and make sure that he was safe so he didn't get hit by cyclists who kept cycling around him, I asked if he needed any help with it, and as broken the Dutch as I could, and he said, "It's fine, I got it." So he helped him, and then when the guy finally got his bearings, because I'm pretty sure he had a concussion, he led him back to the sidewalk and then set him down. Someone had already called the ambulance, so they were on their way. And I just thought that that's such a good representation of how I feel that the Dutch people are. Mind your business until somebody very obviously needs substantial help, and then everyone is there to help that they can, right? And other people came by, they checked to see if anyone needed anything, and as soon as they saw that everything was well in hand, they just kind of kept on their way. So that's how I think
Sounds
of the
pretty
Dutch.
accurate. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds pretty accurate. Like hearing you describe it like that, that's pretty interesting because normally I don't really hear it like that. I'm like, "Oh, we're rude and we're direct." You know?
People who don't know rudeness say that, right? That's my that I think I'm having this revelation right now. Because I think people
Mm.
who have never been purposely, like, never had people be purposely rude to them, and maybe that's just because I'm also Latina, and so I've had racist rudeness. I've had misogynistic rudeness being a trans person in the US. So for me to come to the Netherlands and people say, "Oh, the Dutch are so rude," when in points of fact, the most rude thing that a Dutch person has said to me was that they kind of were just like, "Well, why didn't you figure out how the buses worked before you got here?" It's rude, but it's also kind of like a fair question for a bus driver to ask. Like, why are you making my job harder? Because now I have to teach you while also trying to drive, 60 people on this stupid bus in the middle of the afternoon. Like, now I'm annoyed. Fine, I get it. Because I can just be rude right back to him and be like, "I'm sorry, I didn't learn everything about your country in the first 5 minutes of being here." And then after that, it's fine. It's done. Right? Rude people don't
Yeah.
do that. Rude people attack you. They say things like, "You're stupid. You can't figure this out. How stupid are you?" But the Dutch don't say that. They said, "Why didn't you
Mm.
take the time to learn this?" Right? It's a
Yeah.
there's a slight difference in intention, but it actually matters.
Yeah, yeah, it's a different set of questions. I mean, the other one
Yeah.
is not even a question, it's more like a statement and just,
E-
someone
exactly.
trying to stab you in the heart basically. And
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, I can see that.
And
Oh, wow.
and I suppose I learned this lesson very young because I had Russian friends as a teenager. Like, straight from Russia. They were exchange students, and they had kind of formed their own group of other Russian kids around their age. And I hung out with them because the one person that I was friends with was really pretty, and I just wanted to spend more time with really pretty people. And then after like the first time that I hung out with her and she said something like very directly honest, like brutally so, but not like mean. It was just like, I gotta remember what the question was. I was like 16. She quickly became my favorite person because if I asked her a question, I knew she was going to give me the truth. I'd be like, does this look good? She'd be like, no, that looks stupid. I'd be like, okay, but she's not that I look stupid or that I was stupid, just the thing that
The
I asked her
situation or
about.
the thing, yeah.
Exactly. Like, yes, no, you should not wear, that color with that color. That looks bad. Not you look bad. That looks bad. And I think people tend to conflate the two, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah, definitely, definitely, and I do now you're talking about it like that, I do sometimes tell people things like that as well, like, when they ask for my opinion, because normally I do try to wait for someone to ask for my opinion, and we're like, "Oh, Jen, I just did this for my mental health or for my business or for my clothing or whatever. What do you think of it?" I'm like, that is a stupid idea. Not meaning you are a stupid person, but
Exactly.
the idea is itself is objectively bad.
Yes, exactly. And I suppose in the US, too many people marry the two. And so what I mean by that is that they tie their worth to another person's opinion of their decisions or their stances, right? That's why we've seen such an increase in the vitriol between different political ideologies in the US because people can't separate the idea from the person from themselves and it becomes their identity, right? And so
Mm.
you now if a person then hinges their identity on the approval of what they do, well then of course if somebody says that's a terrible idea, they're going to take it personally because now they've made that idea their personality. Whereas I feel neurodivergent people like myself and you can separate that pretty well. I've found that autistic people in general are quite good at compartmentalizing to a degree.
Oh yeah.
I do it pretty well. My son does it really well. He's also autistic. And so yeah, I don't know. That's kind of like the Dutch to me. The Dutch to me are just a little bit autistic, just as a whole. It's so funny to me because when I was doing the research on the Netherlands before I moved here, I was thinking to myself, like, so much of this cultural stuff feels really autistic. And so I kept thinking, like, is it harder to get an autism diagnosis in the Netherlands because, like, the society and the way things are done are kind of a little autistic? And I don't actually have an answer to that, but I am still curious about it.
Ah, that would be such cool research actually, because whenever I look at it, and it's kind of like the same with Germany as well, also a hugely autistic country for some
Yeah.
reason.
Isn't that a game that people play, like German or autistic?
Is it?
That's what I've heard. I saw it on an Instagram reel or some kind of a meme at some point. So, I take memes with a
Um,
giant grain of salt, but it was funny. They are obsessed
German
with
or
trains and
autistic.
punctuality and cleanliness. So I don't know. That seems pretty autistic.
So am I German or autistic then?
I don't know. Both? Both. Both is good.
I mean, there's some German blood in my veins,
Yeah.
so maybe I don't know. Yeah, no, but indeed, like we love to compartmentalize things in the Netherlands versus seen a lot of countries, they do it like very differently. Where like you are not your job, you stop at 5 or at whatever time frame is like on your schedule, and you do things like this, and this. And now you're saying it like that. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is a hugely autistic country, actually. And that's pretty cool. Okay, we're just a bunch of autistic people here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I think I slotted into the culture here a lot more easily than I thought I would have. Because I feel like that's what was missing from the US society was that directness, that honesty. The US is built on, I if I get started, we'll be here for hours. But suffice it
I
to say,
know.
the US culture in itself lacks a lot of honesty. And that's what I found refreshing about being in the Netherlands. Like now when the Dutchie pays me a really severe compliment, like I worked at this event on Sunday and I had two Dutch women who after I gave them their free 10-minute sample massage, one person said, "Oh my gosh, this work that you've done on my neck was so good I could cry." And I'm just like, okay, well that's massive praise coming from a Dutch person because that seems like really like something that an American would say after like a okay massage, right? And then another person just flat out said, "Oh my god, I need you in my life." And I'm just like, this is not hyperbole like in the States. Like they actually mean this. So it hits a little bit harder and a good way for me when I get paid a compliment by a Dutch person like that because it feels
I,
much more honest.
yeah, it kind of does because when I was in North America, I kind of like took compliments or statements with a grain of salt. I was like, well, you might not mean that because whenever you're waiting a table, you're also over enthusiastic, and your name is Janine, and you'll be here all night to serve me. Like, back off, lady. Just let me eat my food and go away, please.
I
But
loved
here, if
working
some,
European tables. So I
yeah,
served tables for 7 years before massage therapy. So like whenever I had like foreigners of any kind, I would just get so excited because I knew that didn't need me to fucking bother them every 5 minutes.
don't do that. Oh my God.
No,
But here,
nobody
indeed,
cares.
if I say something looks good, or if I'm like, oh, I need that, I mean it. And maybe all of a sudden, that's where the podcast is heading at. Just be your damn self, be an amazing person, and also say stuff that you mean because,
Yeah.
in terms of like mental health and business and all that stuff and all that
Yep.
jazz, if you're not saying what you actually mean, people will confuse everything. And I do feel
Yeah.
like we're all creating a lot of confusion in our lives by just going, "Oh my god, that's great, that's fantastic." Well, actually, it's very mediocre, and you
Mhm.
do not need any more of X, Y, and Z in your life.
Yeah. Agreed. We have there's a US saying, I'm not really sure where it originated, but it goes, say what you mean and mean what you say.
Yeah,
So yeah, be sure of
yeah,
those two things before you really speak. I mean, no one can really follow that perfectly, but I feel it's a good template, right?
yeah. It is, it is, and then also, you just avoid confusion as a whole in your life, which is
Yeah.
great, and which just makes you feel a lot calmer. Like I don't get why in some cultures, I mean, I don't mean to bash anyone, okay? But I don't get why everything has to be like super blown up. I mean, I'm a very warm person being from the South, but I'm also very realistic at the same time. And I
Right.
feel like you're like that as well.
Agreed. I mean, yes, we are more exuberant people. I think when we find something that we really, really enjoy or we have a strong reaction for, we don't temper our external show of that reaction, right? You and I
Mm,
specifically. Because like when we get excited about something, we just let that excitement out. Whereas I
yeah,
feel like a lot of people, I mean, maybe this is part of why people perceive the Dutch as cold, is that they kind of like keep it a little bit more reined in because of the whole do normal thing, right?
yeah,
And so, but it's so yeah, it's kind of nice like when you and I do stuff and you get like super amped up about something. Like I get super amped up because like I know that you're being honestly amped up. You're just not like faking it so that for the sake of my feelings. So like when you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see you." I'm like, "Yes, you are." And I am so excited to see you because now we're really excited.
yeah.
So
That's how we are. Yeah,
it is
yeah,
how we are.
yeah.
And it's a culture, it's a cultural thing and to me it just I love having friends that I can be different levels of energy with. I love my friends like you who I can just be loud and obnoxious and just jovial and exuberant. And then I also have my friends that I like for like when I need just like my nervous system just needs to calm the fuck down for a little bit. And there's some people that we have in our lives that are just really good at that. Like let's just bring the
Yeah.
energy down a little bit. Let's just chill. And it makes for a much it makes for a varied and beautiful tapestry of friendship.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's actually, I'm going to write about that a little bit later in my manuscript because a lot of people are looking for like the one friend, the
Mhm.
one person or the one partner that can give them everything, like
They don't
calming
exist.
down and exuberate. Exactly. And I'm like, okay, just having the one BFF or the one partner or the one thing, that's total bullshit. And it's so unhealthy that we're telling ourselves that that exists. It's like I get like a lot of enthusiasm from you, but I know that when I'm talking with another friend of mine, she's very calm, she's very laid back, and that I need her for other energy purposes, and she
Mhm.
needs me when she needs to be amped up for something, and that's a beautiful way of like working together in terms of energy and in terms of, you know just making sure that everyone fits somewhere in your life.
Yeah, agreed. You know, it's been a point of my life, I think, to have a variety of friends that have been this way. And so the other thing that happens, especially when you try and find a friend or a partner that is your everything, is that you wind up being codependent, right? And I feel like there's a inverse graph of, you know, how attached you are to that one person and how much freedom you feel you actually have. Right. So the closer and more attached you are to a person that is your quote unquote everything, then I feel like at a certain point, avenues to seek this out from other people continue to dwindle and dwindle and dwindle until you get to a point where there's only one way that you can even conceive of receiving X, Y, or Z thing that you need from this person. And that person is very likely not going to be able to meet all of those X's, Y's, and Z's. And so then you get to this weird position where you want more, but you don't know how to find it, but this other person is giving it to you, and there's resentment that builds, and then there's this weird, like, negative, I don't even know how to, miasma of just feeling trapped, right?
Yeah.
Because you're
Yeah.
not getting what you need from the person that you want it from because they can't give it
Yeah.
to you. And yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
dangerous, I
Don't
think. But having a
don't go
group of
looking for
friends,
milk in a hardware store, right?
exactly, right? Exactly. So having a variety of people in your life, not even necessarily friends, but at the very least, like people that you can kind of get different things from, I think is hugely important, platonically and romantically. I
Exactly.
mean,
Amen.
like I am personally not a polyamorous person, but I understand it. I think more so as I've been spending more time around poly people because a lot of the queer groups that I've been in recently are poly families, for example. And so having spent time with them has really helped me kind of understand why these or how, not necessarily but how these worked, because in the past I couldn't conceptualize it intellectually. It didn't make sense to me because it's just not the type of person that I am to be
Mhm.
in a polyamorous relationship. But now that I have spent more time around them, I mean, my philosophy has always been, you know, exposure is the killer of prejudice. So, or at the very least, ignorance. So I was ignorant before. Now I'm educated slightly, and I get it now.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me because sometimes even your partners, whom you've devoted your entire life to, can't give you what you need. And so long as everyone is, you know, on equal footing and equal understanding of where that polyamorous or that situation is going to manifest, if everyone's on the same page, then everyone's happy, everyone's getting what they need, and I don't know. So
Yeah.
seems
I can
pretty
see
cool to
that.
me. Yeah, you know. And then there's
Yeah.
people like me who I'm just like, yeah, I mean, can I get everything from my partner? No. Do I need everything from my partner? No. Do I need everything from a romantic partner? Also no. Right? So yeah, I think it's just kind of it's interesting. Just the different
Yeah.
configurations that people have for the other people in their lives.
This is definitely food for thought, you guys. Oh my goodness.
In what
Yeah, but
way?
no, that it's just, a lot of people just like you said just now, like people who make their partner their everything or who devote their lives to like maybe, the one cause, the one job, the one person, the one task in life. The only thing that that will do, in my very honest and humble opinion, is that it will disappoint you. It,
Yeah.
it will break you because you only have the one thing. Imagine if I was, devoting my whole damn life to my grandpa right now, and
Mhm.
then, he dies. What then? How am
Exactly.
I going to feel? Like that's not healthy. You should have like this wide array of things in your life that give you fulfillment, maybe people or projects, or, preferably a mix of both, a nice private life so that you feel complete. I mean, of course, there will be like some people a little bit more up top on your list and a couple of projects that are a little bit more up top. But
Sure.
normally it's a healthy mix and that keeps you healthy, that keeps you happy. And then you also get to switch a little bit between all the stuff when your energy for the one has ran out and then you get something else to get energy from.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not entirely sure where the origin of the phrase "my cup runneth over," but comes from. But that's kind of what you made me think of just now. Is my cup runneth over with options, right? When you don't tie yourself to one singular entity as your everything, be that your job. Because I mean, similarly, if you lose your job you've devoted your entire life to, well, then now what? And that happens so often
Yeah.
with so many people that I've met in the States, where they lose their job and they never spent the time to even really cultivate a lot of their friendships. So most of their friendships were coworkers. They never cultivated a hobby. So they don't have anything to do in their free time because they spent all of their time working. They don't have any mentors personally because they were all superiors at work. So you can't even have someone to turn to for guidance because all of your guidance people might have fired you, right? So
Oh,
now you're in that situation where you feel completely alone. You have no community anymore because everything was tied to your job. And then you become this person who's adrift without even knowing what they want to do with their lives because there was too much value put on the one thing. Now, myself, I've always, I guess I suppose I should credit ADHD for this. I've always had at least two or three hobbies to fall back on, right?
yeah, same.
So, so I've never understood, or rather, I can't say understood. I didn't understand. I do understand it. I watched my dad go through this. Um, and I never wanted to be that type of person where I had my entire life was devoted specifically to work because I saw what it did to my dad. I saw what it did to my relationship with my dad, uh, to the point that we don't really talk anymore. Although that has less to do with his job now and more to do with my transition. But either way, I saw that happen and I was like, there's no fucking way. I'm not going to be that person. And when I was a kid, was 9, 10 years old, I didn't understand that intellectually. It was just like, that's not the type of person that I am. I'm going to go play football, or I'm going to do music, or I'm going to learn martial arts, or learn how to skateboard, or learn how to draw, or paint. Or I think at one point I got into cross stitching for like 2 days, right? So it's just kind of like I've always had something to fall back on. And even throughout, I've been a massage therapist for, fuck, it'll be, wait, is it 18 years? That can't be right. No, that's not right. 16 years this year. That sounds right.
You should throw a sweet 16 for your massage
I should.
practice.
August will be my sweet 16 for my career. I should do that. That'd be a great like little marketing special actually. See?
Oh my God. Okay.
Now we're thinking.
Yeah. Okay. We
Yeah.
got to sit down.
Oh, damn it. I had a perfect opportunity to throw my practice at quinceañera. Ah, damn it.
Oh, Jesus. Val.
I know. Why didn't I think of that before? I know because
Okay. Then
I
let's
was too
do
busy.
the sweet 16.
The sweet 16. Sweet 16. Fucking perfect. I hope cursing is
Oh my
okay on your
God.
podcast.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. I talk cursing. Well, I don't talk about cursing, but
Uh,
I also do talk politics. I do talk queer stuff, mental health. We touch all like the very sensitive stuff that a lot of people are scared to talk about, which is
yeah.
amazing, and I love it.
Right.
But
Oh,
yeah, no,
actually,
I
question.
yeah.
So, because I'm relatively new to the queer community, even though the vast majority of my friends have been queer since I was a teenager, I've not felt like a part of the queer community. But, anyways, I digress. Is the Sweet 16 thing problematic?
It really
Because it's
depends,
rooted,
I
because
think.
it's really rooted in like kind of gross patriarchal culture.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we don't really do sweet 16s in Europe, I must
Mm-hmm.
say. It's not really a thing here. I've only seen it in movies before when I was a kid, things like
Yeah.
that. So here it's mostly as a joke, you get like you're a girl and you get like
Mm-hmm.
your big pink cake and big 16 on it, whatever. And that's about it. We just make a joke out of it
Got it.
here mostly. So yeah, I don't know about the US. It feels like a much
Oh, see,
bigger thing in Canada and in the US.
it's huge in the U.S. It's
Yeah?
huge. Sweet 16 is a big thing. But again, it's rooted in that patriarchal structure of you're now of age to be a woman at 16. And similarly, quinceañeras have a pretty problematic history as well as it being like, oh, now we can marry you off at 15.
Yay.
Yeah,
Yay.
I think I might have to do research on it. TBD on
Then
the
we
Sweet
should
16
also
thing.
we should also discuss bar and bat mitzvahs then.
Right? I have no idea what the cultural history is for those, so
Oh my goodness, my
can't speak
goodness.
on that. I didn't get a
No, no.
quinceañera, but I
Oh,
want
we
one
can throw we can throw you a triple quinceañera at some point.
when I turn 45.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll get you 3 dresses.
excellent. I will have, oh my gosh, there will be Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3 of my quinceañera, and I will have costume changes for each of them.
Yeah, I love that. Let's do
There we go.
it.
Excellent. Okay.
So guys, this is what you get when 2 very good friends hop on a mic together and it's just a hot
Right.
mess, which I love. I
Yes.
love that. But
We have veered
yeah,
drastically
this is
off course.
oh, definitely. But back to the the person and the thing.
Oh, well.
But
Okay.
back
So we should
back
probably talk about being queer and business ownership.
yeah, so hi, I'm queer and I'm a business owner.
Excellent. Conversation over. So what are we
Yeah.
singing at karaoke on Friday?
I love it. No, but I do wonder, like for both of us, maybe for listeners, because I don't think they really know my story, and they definitely
Hmm.
don't know your story either.
It's true.
Like, how do we have a coming out story, or is it like very
Yeah.
subtle and
No.
non-descriptive?
Nay. Nay, nay, nay. No, my coming out story is multi-part, actually.
Multi-part.
So,
How does that work?
okay. So, part one. I wrote a book. It's a sci-fi book about a lesbian werewolf who's also an alcoholic who lives on the moon and is winds up fighting fascist vampires who run this lunar city, right? And I wrote it between 2016 and it released in 2020. I got a book deal for it and everything. So when the book came out, I was talking to my friend about it, and I was explaining to her that my book was my personal story through alcoholism. So book one was about falling into that alcoholic trap when you really, really start heading for rock bottom. Book two is crashing and burning and hitting rock bottom multiple times before you realize, oh shit, I might have a problem. The book three is the redemption arc, right? So I was telling her about all of this, and I said that my main character is essentially a representation of me. Now, bear in mind that my main character, I wrote her as a Latina, as a lesbian, as an alcoholic, as somebody who generally dislikes people. At the time that I wrote it, I was a very unhappy person. And so, after explaining all of that to her, she's on my table as we're giving her a massage, and she asks, so, why did you feel the need to write yourself as a woman? And I had no answer for her. Right off the bat, I kind of froze. I panicked. I didn't have a good answer. So I went with the intellectual answer, which is one that I used to justify myself. And I said, well, there's pretty shitty representation for Latino people in science fiction and fantasy to begin with. And when we are represented, most of the time, it's not great. And even more so if it's a female character. And there's even fewer queer women, Latina characters in science fiction or fantasy. Like, I am not really sure I could think of too many off the top of my head, but that's beside the point. So, all of this is technically true, but it wasn't the quote truth unquote. And the truth is, it just felt like the right thing to do. I never once in the entire writing process considered writing myself as male. Not once did it ever cross my mind to think, oh, yeah, but I should be represented by a woman. That was just flat out the first thought that I had, and it was the only one that felt right. Fast forward 2024. That question has been plaguing me ever since, right? That, like, why did I feel the need to write myself as a woman? And I never came up with an answer. So I was working on the sequel. And for the book one, I made it a point to read fantasy books written by women about women because I was going to write from the point of view of a woman. So I should probably do my homework. For book two, my wife had asked me to read, had gotten me to read A Court of Thorns and Roses. So for any romance book readers, y'all know exactly which series this is. And they were fine. I enjoyed them, but they weren't revelatory for me. So once I'd read those and I read the first book, I read Fourth Wing, and I couldn't stomach the second book, so I didn't finish it. But I thought to myself, you know what? This was fun. Let me see what it's like on the sapphic side of things. So at that point, I found a book to read and I listened to the audiobook and I was hooked. I devoured sapphic romance. For about 6 months, I consumed nothing but sapphic content. And I mean, I consumed nothing but sapphic TV shows and movies. I consumed nothing but sapphic manga and anime and audiobooks and Kindle books and music. I discovered Fletcher during this time, right? Listening to her and then King Princess. And I was just like, why do these songs hit so much harder than everything else that I've ever listened to or read or watched or seen? And it didn't hit me until about, yeah, until right around August ish, that I was not cis. Am not cis. There was too much of how women were describing their attraction to other women, about how other women made them feel emotionally, about how they navigated the world and thought about the world and consumed things in the world as women felt so much more real to me and closer to me than anything else that I had written or consumed before that. So that was a really big, the second piece that that slotted into my gender journey. So I came out as gender fluid not too long after that. Then I had my stroke. Um, then the quick version of my stroke is I have a malformed blood vessel in my brain that perpetually leaks blood, and so most people just have this small little pool of blood in their brain and it never does anything and they die without ever having seen it or known about it. Unfortunately for me, I had uncontrolled blood pressure at the same time. So what wound up happening is I was incredibly stressed out because this was a period of time where my grandmother's health took a turn for the worse. My mom was out of town. I had been on medical leave from my work for a while, so money was tight. I was stressed beyond belief, and Donald Trump had recently been elected, so that was, or not elected, but it was a really shitty time. I'm sitting there in the hospital, in the emergency room after they'd done the MRI and found the bleed, and I made the mistake of Googling the mortality rate for brain bleeds, and it was 50%. So I'm sitting there in the emergency room thinking, there's a 50-50 shot I'm not making it out of here alive. And the world to me hasn't really looked the same since, nor has it felt the same. And it was at that point that I decided, if I make it out of here, I'm not wasting any more time. I refuse to die before figuring out who I really am. And it still took me maybe a couple more months before I fully accepted that I was completely trans. Not gender fluid, just fully trans. Even during my gender fluidity, I got rid of all of my boy clothes, all of them. And I never wanted to shop for them again. And I still don't. And so I finally came out as trans to my wife in, I want to say, November, December 2024. And I moved, or rather, after that, I made the appointment to start HRT, but I didn't tell anybody. And because it was a 3-month wait to see a specialist, which I was actually fine with because I was like, well, I just made the decision and it's a pretty big one because HRT causes some permanent changes. So I wanted to sit with it for a while before I really, committed. So yeah, February 2025, the 21st of February 2025, I started HRT. And my life has been substantially better since then. So that's my coming out story. Like I said, it's a 3-parter.
Wow.
Yeah,
That was gorgeous and also very, I don't know, it really, it touched something. Thank you for telling me.
you're welcome. Have I not told you this story before?
I mean, you've told me like the shorter version, but that's, when we're at a dinner table and our ADHD goes all over the table, which,
Right.
we do
It
that.
tends to do, yeah.
We do that a lot. Yeah. No, that's, oh, thank you for telling me, for
Yeah,
telling
of course.
everyone. I mean, I also want everyone to know who's listening, you're safe with Val, you're safe with me, and we'll take care of you if we need to. If we have the
Exactly.
means and if anything's up, you can just look us up and we'll be there. Even just in
Yeah,
our DMs, we'll be there for you.
for sure. It's interesting. When I worked at this event on Sunday, one
Yeah.
of the people that came up to me, she told me that she typically doesn't like massages because she's very wary of people touching her. And she'd never met me, but she said, I don't know, I got a good feeling about you. And she's also autistic. So when an autistic person notes the very deliberate, like small little micro movements that I do in order to make myself seem more welcoming, really confirms that I am doing the right thing. Because if there's one thing that I really want people to understand, it's that I will go out of my way to make sure that you feel safe and respected and honored as to the best of my abilities, right? And she picked up on that without having even spoken a word to me from across the room, because as she was sitting towards the front and I was sitting in the back, just kind of minding my own business, just and the leader of the event introduced me, and then I kind of just waved to everybody and smiled, and I was like, "Hi," and yeah. That meant a lot to me that someone could tell that I was a safe person for her, even though she'd never met me before. So huge moment. And I just say that to reiterate what you said, that I will do my best to make sure that you feel safe around me.
And it's very important. I mean, I
Yeah.
do feel like now racism and sexism and all that stuff, it's getting the upper hand again. And if we can at least make sure that within our queer space and our queer business space, that we're the welcoming and the kind ones, that's already something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and it's so important.
and I think people are looking more toward people who are being authentically themselves now in this time of what feels like, cataclysmic upheaval globally. And thank you for saying that sexism and racism are gaining the upper hand instead of saying that it's so much worse than it used to be, because you know that this isn't anything new, but it is gaining the upper hand. And it's so
Yes.
nice to meet someone who doesn't say, I don't recognize this anymore. This is so crazy. I've never seen anything like this. But the truth is, the world has been pretty shitty for a long time.
Or
Yeah.
forever, basically. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing right now is that we get to zoom in on stuff. We have all this
Yeah.
technology, and that's the thing. We get to zoom in on stuff. So whenever someone's like, "Oh, the world has gotten like so much worse," blah blah blah, I'm like, first of all, let's stop right there. Read the book Factfulness. But that being said, we
Just pay
do have to
attention to
take care of
history.
each other.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, community means everything, especially now.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how lacking I was in community in the US until I came here. Like, say what you will about the
Mm.
Netherlands, there are a lot of issues that I have with this place. But the one thing that I have found, and maybe the Netherlands in the context of the rest of the EU is this way, where it might feel to other Europeans that the Netherlands are, or the Dutch are, cold and distant and what have, and not community focused. But I have found the opposite to be true here, because I came from a place that was even less community focused and much more like toxically individualistic. And so, having been here and living in a country where what feels like to me the basis is taking care of a community has been revelatory for me. Not least of which, like, there are WhatsApp groups for every community that you can think of, and they are all just like out there. And yeah, you kind of have to go looking for it, but once you're there, like, community is really easy to find. And also, just getting to know people around me has been a lot easier. Or maybe it went the other way around, but regardless, a perfect example is the last handful of days I've had some really cool experiences where, I was riding my bike to my clinic for work, and the owner for one of my favorite restaurants was just sitting out there having lunch with her employees. So, I'm riding in the bike lane, she's sitting out on the patio. We see each other, we just wave like, "Hi, Hannah," and then off we go, right? And then I think the next day, my wife and I were going out to Albert Heijn to get groceries, and then we ran into another friend of mine who lives not too far from here, and she was on her way to have coffee with a friend. So we had an impromptu coffee date after we went grocery shopping, and we got to meet a new person, right? Today, I went to go meet up with another friend of mine for lunch, and as I was walking there, I saw yet another couple of friends just they actually stopped me because I didn't see them right away. I walked past them as they were sitting at a restaurant, and then they actually ran up to me. She tapped me, and she's like, "Val, is that you?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." It's like, "Oh my gosh." And so we just like I couldn't stay and chat with them. But like that's what I mean. Like it feels like a neighborhood. It feels like a community here where people know each other and they're excited to see you. And I did
Yeah.
not get that back in the States, even when I knew my neighbors, right? Even when their kids would come over to our place and hang out with my kids and all that stuff. Like we were kind of like the go-to hangout place at our old apartments. But half the parents I never met. They just let their kids come over all the time. I wouldn't have even known if I had run into them at the grocery store or not. And because the US is so car focused, like you can't even really count on like public transportation for really meeting people because so many people are just stuck in their cars, right? So, I don't know. It's been nice. I forgot where this conversation started, but this is where we're at now.
Which is totally fine. This is how it goes. I mean, especially with you and me, we got this. We got
Right.
this. I I
I've
do.
completely lost
I
the plot.
That's totally fine. But I do. Before we round it all up, I do have a question for you, and
Shoot.
it just all of a sudden it just popped up in my head, and I find this a rather don't want to like be too arrogant or anything, but I'm just a cool person. I find this a rather beautiful question. How do you embrace your queer joy right now?
Oh. I know the answer. I'm just trying to find the best words to put it in. My specific version of queer joy comes from experiencing aspects of womanhood that I never got to in my adolescence. So things like having a friend come over to do my makeup just for the sake of trying out new techniques and having or going over to another friend's house where we sit in PJs, eat food and watch soap operas together or going dress shopping or just I don't know, talking and just spending more time with the women in my life in I think in a dynamic that I've been missing for 40 years.
Mm.
I've always wanted to be one of the girls. And I remember thinking to myself when I was a teenager, especially, like 85% of my friends were girls. And I still never felt comfortable enough to just be like part of their group, right? And I understand why. There's a lot of reasons why that is. And a lot of them are very, very valid. And many of them are born out of safety. So now my queer joy just comes from, yeah, just those girly things that I never got to do or got to embrace when I was younger. Dressing up in colors that I was always too timid to try, or trying out a bold lip color now that I'm a year and change into transition. And honestly, just spending more time with queer people in general has been the most rewarding, joyous thing of this last year and a half to me.
Yeah, that's
Um,
liberating.
it is. It's hugely liberating. Like I finally feel like one of the girls, and that to me is incredible. So when
Mm.
I get to go hang out in women's spaces and I am received with warmth and acceptance, it's just pure joy for me. So yeah, that's how I experience queer joy.
Oh, my heart. Ah, girl. Oh my
And
God.
that I love it when people call me girl. It's the best. I remember one of my first what I didn't even realize was gender euphoria. And this is kind of a funny story. So I was working at, but the last job that I had was, which was Microsoft Campus, and we had the office manager was this really sweet gay guy, and there was one day like we all, myself and my acupuncture friend and Anthony, who's the manager, we're all hanging out together just at work, and at one point he called me queen, and I swear to God, I have never felt so good in my life before then. He calls me queen. He goes, "Yes, queen," and I was just like, I am a queen. Oh my gosh. I'm a queen. Like I still like I get like my skin is flushed just thinking about it, right? So when he called me that, I didn't even know that that's what gender euphoria was. But that's what I was experiencing. Being called queen, and then they meant it in a very affirming of my femininity kind of way. Was astoundingly cool. And so now like that word holds a very special meaning for me. So yeah.
Oh. I
It seems so simple, but
I'm gonna for some reason I feel like crying, but just happy tears. I can feel like your energy coming through, and I'm like, I want to cry happy tears for you. It's crazy, but
yeah.
you know, the first time that I saw you, I was also just like, that's a girl. It's a pretty girl.
Thank
It's
you.
a pretty girl. It's a
Thank
pretty
you.
girl, and that's it.
You know, my
And
therapist also, when she met me, she said that I've only ever seen the feminine. And I was like, that's great. And now I have amazing curly hair. Ugh,
I know. Oh my god, you guys can't see Val, but her curls, holy crapski, it's amazing. It's the
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I like,
No.
ironically, like, my hair is like the thing that I get complimented the most now.
But your hair looks great.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's wild to me. That was never something that I never got compliments for my hair before. Because before I just kept it like super short and really, basic boyish because I just didn't give a shit. But like now I'm just like, all right, I have like products for my hair. Oh, that's the other thing.
Yes.
Like ever since transition, like there's so much effort that goes into being femme. I feel that it was an effort that I never would have made for myself before transition, but now, like, yes, it's tiring to do my makeup. Yes, it's tiring to do my skincare routine. Yes, the hair removal process is a fucking nightmare and it takes hours. And
Mhm.
yet, here I am, a year and 4 months? Yeah, almost 4 months later, and I'm still putting in the effort. I would have never been able to be this consistent beforehand, but I actually give a shit about myself now, and I actually like the way that the end result of all of my effort goes to like actually making me feel good about me. So it's been nice, really cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a huge part of queer joy. I mean,
Yeah.
finding your own identity through all that and just going for it. Like, you know, for me, my queer joy is also being able to embrace my femininity and,
Hmm.
having like, there's like a lot of guys telling me, oh, you look too pretty or, too feminine to be
Oh,
gay. And I'm like, well, but I love looking like this. And you know what kind of girls I like. I like them to
yes,
be a
I
bit more
do.
masc than I am.
Yes.
But I just I like me for me and
Yeah.
I like who I am and it's been such a struggle through the years to figure out my identity and going left and right and going gender neutral and going back and forth and it's hard enough as is. So, once you find that part of yourself where you're like, "Hey, this makes me happy. This is who I am." That's just the pure queer joy that you can create for yourself. And once you create that for yourself, your surroundings will be also so much for the better of it. Definitely.
Hugely. Yeah. 100%. I and it's the most amazing thing that I have experienced in my transition, and just by the virtue of me embracing, you know, myself, the core of who I am, and expressing the core of who I am as exuberantly as I have, has inspired a lot of other people to do the same thing. And my favorite example is my stepdad. He is, I would describe him as a Bruce Willis lookalike, right? So, white guy, bald head, very, very bright, light blue eyes. Roundabouts, I think, so this was before I left, so this must have been around November of last year. We're sitting at the table, and we had come up with a nickname for him, Papo. I don't remember where it came from. And my kids came up with it, I think. Regardless, I think we went with Papo because my mom told me she didn't want to be called grandma. She wanted to be called something else. And so I applied the same logic to my stepdad. So fast forward to last November. And we're sitting around and somebody calls him Papo. And then he goes, actually, I don't really like being called Papo. Could you guys call me Grandpa instead? Now, mind you, my son is 13. He's had this nickname for 13 years and never once did anything to bring it up. But I asked to be called something new, and he's respecting that. And so he thought to himself, well, if I don't like being called Papo, I could probably just ask to be called something else. So he did. So he asked, can you guys call me Grandpa instead? I would really like that. And I said, absolutely. All right, kids, from now on, Brian is going to be called Grandpa. He goes, okay, Grandpa. And the way his face lit up, the sheer joy of being called Grandpa by my kids, like I am tearing about it now, right? And to me, it's such a beautiful thing for someone to see how unabashedly I have decided to accept myself and ask other people to accept me, that they now feel safe enough to ask the same of me, to respect who they are or what they would prefer to be called. And I thought,
Yeah.
again, I thought that was just the coolest thing ever, and I'll never forget it. It was the most amazing thing. So yeah, and I've had other people tell me that they're examples, but that was the very first one and the one that really that struck home really hard for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, feels. So many
Right.
feels.
So many
I'm
feels.
gonna
And I love talking to kids about my
make
transness. Weirdly as that might sound.
like
Some
kids are just so open and creative and accepting and kind, and they're so, yeah, I can see that. Like whenever a little girl, they she sees me walking hand in hand with another girl, they're like, is that a possibility? Can I do
yes.
that?
You
And
can
I'm
do
like,
that,
yes, you
girl.
can. It's
You can do
okay.
ultimately you can do whatever the fuck you want. To a degree. But
Yeah.
my
Don't
favorite
go
my
murdering people. We don't like that, but
exactly. Um well, anyways. Can I tell you my do we have time for me to tell you my favorite kid story about as my transness?
yeah, sure. And
Okay.
after that, I do think we have to stop because after that, we have to do a second episode.
Maybe we should make this a series.
That's what I was thinking. No, Val, we're getting there. We're going there again. We're starting a new company.
Fuck it, why not? I've already started one.
Okay.
Let's do two. Anyway,
Okay. Yeah, tell me.
we'll do a production company. Okay, so I went to my friend's 4th of July party. So Independence Day in the U.S. for those who don't know. Her sister had brought over her kids, and I think they were about 5 or 6ish. So this little boy, this little blonde boy, is in the hot tub, and I get in the hot tub, and my daughter is also there playing with stuff. Anyway, kid comes up to me while I'm in the hot tub, just kind of sitting there in my swimsuit, and he goes, "Are you a boy or a girl?" And I was like, "Well, I was a boy, but now I'm becoming a girl." And then he goes, "Were you abducted by aliens?" And I was like, "Yes. I was abducted by aliens and they put nanobots in my body to slowly turn me into a girl over a handful of years." And he goes, "Well, that's rude. They should have just done it all at once." And I was like, "You're right. It is pretty rude. They should have just turned me into a girl right at once. Thank you for saying that." And he goes, "Are you an actual person or are you a hologram?" And then he pretends to stick his hands through me, just making weird sounds. And then that was the whole end of the conversation. Like we just basically just like wound up playing like invisible person for a while.
Oh,
That's my
kids,
favorite
man. I
story.
love kids.
Yeah, the
I
kids are
love
great.
kids.
Because
Oh
they don't
my
give a
God,
shit,
that's
man.
amazing.
Every time that I've explained to kids that like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm a girl, but I used to be a boy. They're like, oh, okay. That's it. Same conversation I had
Yeah.
with my son when I explained transness to my son. He was 12. And at the time I hadn't come out yet. But I wanted him to be familiar with the concept, so I asked him if he'd heard of it, and he goes, "No, what is that?" And I go, "Well, it's when somebody is born this way, and then, they wind up changing for X, Y, Z reasons." He goes, "Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense."
And that's it.
It's that fucking
That,
easy. And you
yeah.
know what else? He's never misgendered me. Not once.
Amazing. I love that.
I've never heard him misgender me at all. My daughter, I mean, she's much more vocal, so she talks a lot more. So sometimes she does, but it's all completely by accident, and she does it a lot less now. But yeah, it's crazy. Well,
Yeah.
who knew, right? Oh no,
If
the
kids can do it,
trauma.
who can't? Jesus.
Ugh.
Oh my
This
God.
this is why I know every single like, well, it's complicated for the children is just a crock of bullshit.
Yeah, it is.
Kids understand this
It is.
right off the bat, as long as you're willing to explain it
And
to them clearly.
exactly. And it's also just, they're like very accepting of it. They're like, yeah, okay, whatever. You do I just want to play with my cars or
Yep.
my Barbie doll or on my damn trampoline. And if
Yeah,
you want to wear a dress or if you want to wear pants, I don't care.
exactly. And the funny thing is, when the problem that my son had with my transness had nothing to do with me being trans, and everything to do with him feeling like the only boy in the family now.
Oh no.
Right? So he felt a little adrift, and he was really worried about the upcoming changes to his body and puberty. And so I told him, I was like, well, kiddo, just because I'm a girl doesn't mean I didn't go through the same things that you did. So I can still be here to help you through this and navigate and explain things as they come. Because I did go through this already
Yeah.
once. And he actually, that helped him substantially. He was like, oh, yeah, that's true. Okay. And then he was good. He is good. Right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
Hey, is there anything else that you want to tell our audience for now? Any
I,
cracking wisdom coming up?
yes, massage is a necessity disguised as a luxury. So book your first session with me for 20% off. I'm in Amsterdam on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and in Den Haag, the first and third Saturday of every month.
Yay. Yeah, y'all should go see Val because Val is just the greatest person.
I'm
This
also
sounds so
very good at my
this
job.
sounds so American. Like, oh, this is the greatest person. No, but for real, guys, no, you are such a fun person to hang out with, and
you.
I just genuinely appreciate you. And making friends in our 30s and 40s is sometimes hard enough as is. And I'm just very grateful for having been able to make a new friend
Agreed.
later. And
Late in life friends are so
yeah,
hard to come by. I'm also
yeah,
very thrilled to have met you, and like you keep reminding me, I'm stuck with you. Well, you're also stuck with me. So
yay.
yeah, and
All
yeah,
right.
make friends,
Well,
people.
yes, make friends and accept yourself. Just be the amazing person that you are, period.
Agreed.
Yeah. And just,
Okay,
at a certain degree, don't go murdering people. Okay, guys,
exactly.
we'll talk to you later. Val and I, we will do a second part. Definitely.
Yes, part 2.
Yes, coming up.
Okay, we should really go for real.
And that wraps up today's episode. First of all, a huge thank you to Val for sharing her story so openly and for being exactly who she is. I genuinely believe the world becomes a little bit softer and a little bit safer because people like her choose to show up authentically. If there is one thing I hope you take away from this conversation, it's this: you don't have to become someone else to belong. The right people will not ask you to shrink. They'll simply make more room at the table that you're sitting at or that you want to sit at. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd absolutely love it if you left a rating or review on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps more people discover these conversations and keeping this little corner of the internet growing. And if you're ready to go beyond listening, to start actively investing in your own mental wealth, keep an eye out on my socials and the With Genevieve website. The Great Minds Project is just around the corner, alongside new episodes from the pod, workshops, and community experiences designed to help you build a life that feels calmer, stronger, and more like you. And finally, if someone came to mind while you were listening today, a friend, a sibling, your partner, or someone who's quietly trying to figure themselves out, send this episode their way. Sometimes sharing a podcast is a beautiful way of saying, I thought of you, or I love you, or hey, I care. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. Take good care of yourself, be kind to the people around you, and I'll see you in the next episode.